on last year for asserting theirs. But it's Muslim fundamentalism in Azerbaijan that's posing the most violent threat to the country's unity. Soviet viewers saw the result of a week's rioting on their border with Iran. Fencing torn down, electricity and telephone lines cut, and border posts attacked.
We have so many things happening here and there in the south, in the west, almost all over the place, and we have really domestic issues. If you put all these domestic issues together, it's up to you to describe this as a crisis.
The Soviet Foreign Minister, Mr. Shevardnadze, arrives in Bucharest later today for the first talks between Moscow and the interim Romanian government. He'll spend 1 day there. The Soviet Union has already pledged aid to Romania, including natural gas and oil supplies. Here, BP is warning a second petrol price rise could be on the way next week. It follows an increase yesterday of just over 3p a gallon at BP pumps. Esso prices rose by 5.5p, and the other oil companies are likely to follow suit.
A cold winter in the United States has caused much of the pressure on oil prices, coupled with a huge fire at the country's second biggest refinery. That's led to a drastic rise in demand for imported fuel. And the supply's been hit by internal problems in the Soviet Union, which would normally be trying to sell industrial oil on the world market. But the companies say they're having to pass on the higher price they're now paying for petrol, and things could get worse.
If that price stays where it is, then within the next week or so we shall have to increase prices by perhaps another 3 to 4p per gallon.
And next spring, when motorists use their cars more, analysts say prices could reach a new high.
I think then we may see the petrol price actually go up through the £2 a gallon level. But I think people have got to realise that the days of very cheap fuel are over.
Petrol pricing is the subject of a Monopolies Commission report now being studied by the Trade and Industry Secretary Nicholas Ridley. That's made this a particularly bad time for the oil companies to announce a price rise, even though they insist they had little choice.
A Bedford man had his hand blown off last night as he opened the gate to his home. Bomb squad officers sealed off the area and moved neighbours out. Police say they don't know the cause, but are not treating it as a terrorist incident. It's believed the man was carrying the explosives when they went off.
One of our explosives sniffer dogs showed great interest in a rucksack which was found on the front doorstep of the house. An officer did investigate, and what appeared to be powder, possibly explosives, was found in the rucksack. The bomb squad were called, and they have carried out a controlled explosion.
The victim was taken to a specialist unit at Mount Vernon Hospital in Northwood, Middlesex, where he's understood to be very badly injured and in deep shock. The Labour MP, Mr. Ron Brown, has decided not to give evidence at his trial. He's pleaded not guilty to charges of theft and criminal damage to the flat of his former mistress.
Mr. Brown's lawyer told the court the MP would not be giving evidence during his trial. But the court did hear Mr. Brown being interviewed on tape by the police shortly after he was arrested, though the judge, John Gower, said it is very difficult to gather what is being said. With his wife close behind him in the public gallery, Mr. Brown listened intently to the tape, on which he could be heard insisting it was Mrs. Longden's current boyfriend, Dermot Redmond, who damaged her flat as he was trying to attack the MP. He was a very angry man, Mr. Brown said. He thought I was trying to resuscitate a relationship with Mrs. Longden. He thought I was some sort of threat to him. Mr. Brown said if he himself had caused any damage, it was only accidental when he was trying to defend himself. Asked by the police to explain why he'd gone to Mrs. Longden's flat, Mr. Brown said whenever he went into the chamber of the House of Commons, someone asked him about his relationship with Mrs. Longden. The MP said, I only wanted what she's got, what I thought could be compromising to me. Mr. Brown's decision not to give evidence means he won't face cross-examination in court about the criminal damage and theft charges which he denies. The jury is expected to give their verdict on Tuesday.
The Football Association has charged Swindon's chairman, Brian Hillier, and the club's former manager, Lou Macari, with taking part in unauthorised betting. It follows a claim that Mr. Hillier won £4,000 when Swindon lost a cup tie to Newcastle 5-0.
This is the match at the centre of the allegations, Newcastle's 5-0 victory over Swindon in the FA Cup 2 years ago. The charge is that the Swindon chairman, Brian Hillier, and the then manager, Lou Macari, placed a large bet on their own team to lose. Under FA rules, no official or player is permitted to bet on any match. The People newspaper claim they have the evidence. The stake, they say, was £6,500, the winnings £4,000. The paper printed what they say is a copy of the payout cheque. Mr Hillier refused to comment on the FA's charges. Macari, who's since become manager of 2nd Division West Ham, says only the matter's in the hands of his solicitors. The FA say there's no suggestion that Macari or anyone at Swindon was involved in fixing the result of the match. But if found guilty of placing the bet, a life ban is one option for the FA. A heavy fine, much more likely.
Well, we take a break now, then the world news, including a visit to a remarkable collection of historic clocks in the home of the man called California's Tick-Tock Doc. Stay with us.
Wouldn't you like to be able to play golf the way you see it being played by world-famous golfers? Well, here's how you can improve your golf. Published in weekly parts, it tells you how to choose equipment, how to improve your technique with lots of helpful tips from professionals, how to play the most famous courses, even how to get out of a tight corner. It's all here, everything you want to know to help you improve your golf.
Mrs. Thomas has a very sore throat.
It's very painful. I've tried everything.
What about Chloraseptic from Vicks?
Chlora what?
Chloraseptic. It's so fast it'll start to work before we can finish this commercial.
I doubt it.
Chloraseptic spray action gets to work right where it hurts right away. It contains a really fast-acting painkiller. But can it start to work before this commercial ends? Mrs. Thomas?
That's amazing.
British satellite broadcasting will be on air in the spring. We've listened to thousands of people's ideas and opinions about what makes great television. And we'll continue to listen, so you get to see more of the programs you really want to see. BSB, 5-channel TV. You watch, we listen.
After bathing, some soaps leave scummy stuff behind, which could dry your baby's skin. But Infocare Baby Bath leaves nothing behind but baby soft skin. We experts recommend Infocare. It leaves nothing behind but smooth, soft skin.
Hello again, it's 11 minutes past 5. President Gorbachev's problems at home, as we've already been reporting in the programme, are legion. But the revolutionary changes in Romania may give him the chance to solve at least one problem, as we hear in this latest edition of the ITN World News, presented by Guy de Faye.
Despite tension at home, the Soviet leadership has been working to form a new relationship with Romania. The Kremlin has promised fuel and food to help the country overcome immediate winter shortages. The Soviet Foreign Minister Eduard Shevardnadze is flying there this weekend. His visit is the clearest signal so far of Moscow's approval of Romania's new leaders.
As the Soviet embassy makes preparations for their foreign ministers' talks, the National Salvation Front is readying itself for what it sees as the most crucial political link since the revolution. Mr. Shevardnadze will arrive in the new Romania to hear assurances from her leaders and calls for close ties with the Soviet Union, particularly over economic aid. But he'll also observe a growing skepticism about the National Salvation Front's role in the run-up to free elections. Anti-communist feeling, expressed on the streets days after the revolution, is now more structured in the growing number of pressure groups and political parties trying to prepare their ground. The National Christian Peasants' Party is the largest contender. But it says the National Salvation Front is dominated by former communist leaders who are now planning to contest the elections.
We consider that the revolution has been stolen from us.
The party also complains it isn't having a say in the way elections in April are organized because former communists are in control.
Building, motor car.